You can't park there. I don't care if you think you're handicapped. I watched you walk from that car just fine." The voice echoed across the Springfield Mall parking lot, sharp and self-righteous. Anthony Williams, 70 years old with silver hair and a slight limp most people wouldn't notice, turned slowly to face the security guard bearing down on him. The younger man, maybe 35, chest puffed out in his Navy uniform, pointed aggressively at the blue handicapped placard hanging from Williams' rearview mirror. "Fake handicapped tags are a crime, sir. I'm having your vehicle towed, and I'm calling the police." Williams looked at the guard with eyes that had seen firefights in jungles where this man's worst nightmare wouldn't survive 5 minutes, and he simply said, "Son, you might want to reconsider that." The guard's face reddened with indignation. "Are you threatening me? That's it. Your car's gone, and you're getting escorted off the property. If you believe our heroes deserve respect no matter how much time has passed, type respect in the comments." Anthony Ironside Williams had been called worse things than a faker. During 3 tours in Vietnam, he'd been called everything from cannon fodder to baby killer, depending on who was doing the talking and which side of the protest line they stood on. But having some shopping mall rent-a-cop question his legitimacy, that was new territory, and it scraped at something he usually kept buried deep. He'd parked in the handicapped spot closest to the entrance of Springfield Mall, same as he did every Saturday morning when he came for his walk-through. Doctor's orders. Keep mobile. Keep the shrapnel-damaged leg moving. Don't let the old wounds stiffen up more than they already had. The placard was legitimate, issued by the state DMV after they'd reviewed his VA medical records. Records that included 17 pieces of metal still embedded in his left leg from a grenade that should have killed him in 1969. But the placard wasn't what made his parking privileges special. It was the license plate the guard hadn't bothered to actually read. MH1969 VN. Medal of Honor, 1969, Vietnam. The guard, his name tag read Derek Paulson, Security Supervisor, was already on his radio, calling for a tow truck with the zealous enthusiasm of a man who thought he'd caught someone gaming the system. "Yeah, we got a fraudulent handicapped parker, spot A7, elderly male, walked to the entrance without assistance. I need a tow here, ASAP." Williams sighed. "Son, before you do something you can't undo, take a look at my license plate. Actually read it this time." Paulson barely glanced at the car, a modest 2015 sedan that had seen better days. "I don't need to read anything. I watched you walk. I've been doing this job for 8 years, and I know the fakers when I see them. You walked from that car like you're training for a marathon. You don't limp. You don't use a cane. You don't struggle. That placard is either stolen or fraudulent, and either way, your day just got a lot more complicated." He pulled out a citation book, starting to write with flourishes that suggested he was enjoying this. "I'm citing you for misuse of handicapped parking, fraudulent display of accessible parking credentials, and trespassing once I escort you off the property. The tow company will hold your vehicle until you pay the fees and the police decide whether to press charges." Williams felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the one that came when bureaucracy and ignorance collided with his reality. How did you explain to someone who'd never served, never seen combat, never dragged himself through mud with his leg half blown off, that some wounds don't show in your gait? That he worked to walk normally, spent an hour every morning stretching and exercising just so people wouldn't stare, wouldn't pity, wouldn't see him as broken? That the reason he didn't limp dramatically was because he'd refused to let that grenade take more than it already hid? "Derek," Williams said quietly, using the name tag as a bridge, trying for connection. "I served in Vietnam. I was wounded in action. That placard is legitimate, and so is my right to park here. If you'll just check with—" "Oh, here we go," Paulson interrupted, rolling his eyes with theatrical exaggeration. "The I'm a veteran card. You know how many people try that on me? Everybody suddenly becomes a war hero when they get caught doing something wrong. I had a guy last month claim he was at D-Day. He was 45 years old. He jabbed his pen toward Williams. I respect our military, I really do. My uncle was in the Gulf War, but that doesn't give anyone the right to fake a disability and steal parking from people who really need it. The tow truck was already pulling into the lot, the driver clearly on speed dial for the overzealous security supervisor. Williams watched it approach with the same calm he'd maintained under mortar fire. That strange clarity that came when the situation was out of your hands, and all you could do was stand your ground and wait for the chaos to sort itself. "You're making a mistake," he said one more time, not pleading, not angry, just stating fact. Paulson laughed, actually laughed. "The only mistake being made here is yours, buddy. Thinking you could waltz into my parking lot and abuse accommodations meant for people who actually need them. Well, not on my watch." He gestured to the approaching tow truck. "Hook it up, Jimmy. Blue sedan, spot A7. Owners being cited for fraudulent handicapped parking." The tow driver, a weathered man in his 50s with the look of someone who'd seen enough of life to question most things, glanced at the license plate and froze. Derek? You see that plate?" Paulson waved dismissively. "I don't care if it says God on it. The guy's faking a disability. Hook it up." Jimmy, the tow driver, looked at Williams, then back at Paulson, then at the plate, again. "Derek, that's a Medal of Honor plate. You sure you wanna—" I said, "Hook it up." Williams stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the scene unfold with the patience of a man who knew the universe had a way of teaching lessons to those who refused to learn them the easy way. The license plate on his vehicle wasn't just decorative. In the state of Illinois, Medal of Honor recipients received lifetime special parking privileges through a bill signed into law in 1985, expanded in 1998, and reaffirmed with additional benefits in 2007. 3 different governors had signed iterations of that law. Each Medal of Honor recipient in the state was in a database, a small database, only 17 living recipients as of this year, and their license plates were flagged in multiple systems. The DMV had it. The state police had it. The governor's office had it. Because when someone earned the nation's highest military decoration, usually by doing something that should have killed them while saving others, the least a grateful state could do was let them park wherever the hell they needed to. And Illinois had gone further. Any attempt to cite, tow, or otherwise interfere with a Medal of Honor recipient's vehicle triggered an automatic alert. Automatic. The second Jimmy entered that license plate into his towing company's computer system, which was linked to the state DMV database as required by law, an alert fired. The alert pinged simultaneously to the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, the State Police Dispatch Center, and a dedicated terminal in the governor's office that existed specifically for this purpose. At 9:47 a.m. on that Saturday morning, Governor Rebecca Martinez was in her Springfield office, catching up on constituent mail before luncheon, when her phone buzzed with an alert she'd only seen twice in her 4 years as governor. The screen displayed Medal of Honor, Recipient Vehicle Interference. Alert, Williams, Anthony J., 1969, MH 1969 VN, Springfield Mall, 2847 Veterans Parkway. She read it twice, her blood pressure rising with each word. Vehicle interference meant someone was trying to ticket or tow a Medal of Honor recipient. Someone was harassing one of the 17 most decorated military heroes in her state. She hit the direct line to her chief of staff. "Get me everything on Anthony Williams, and get me the mall's main number now. Someone's trying to tow his car." Her voice had that edge staffers knew meant someone's day was about to get very bad. While she waited, she pulled up Williams' file from the state database. Every Medal of Honor recipient had one, maintained to ensure they received every benefit and honor the state could provide. The file was thin but devastating in its brevity. Second Lieutenant Anthony Williams, United States Army, Company B, 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, 1st Cavalry Division. Date of action, March 17, 1969, near An Loc, South Vietnam. During an ambush, Lieutenant Williams platoon was pinned down by a fortified enemy position with interlocking fields of fire. With casualties mounting and his men unable to advance or retreat, Williams had single-handedly assaulted the enemy bunker complex. He'd destroyed 2 machine gun nests with grenades, killed 6 enemy combatants in close combat, and held the position for 15 minutes under intense fire while his platoon evacuated the wounded. A grenade had shattered his left leg in the process. He'd continued fighting, continued holding that position, until friendly reinforcements arrived. 17 of his men made it home because of those 15 minutes. He'd spent 2 years in military hospitals, endured 8 surgeries, and walked away with a leg held together by pins and scar tissue. The Medal of Honor was presented to him by President Nixon in 1970. The photo in the file showed a 23-year-old kid in dress uniform, standing ramrod straight despite the cane, eyes staring somewhere beyond the camera. Now he was 70, and some mall cop was having his car towed. Martinez's phone rang before she could finish reading. Her chief of staff. "Governor, I have Springfield Mall Management on line 2. Security company is contracted through—" "I don't care who they're contracted through. Connect me to whoever's in charge of that parking lot, right now." There was a pause, some clicking, then a confused voice. This is Derek Paulson, security supervisor." "Who is—" "Mr. Paulson, this is Governor Rebecca Martinez. You're currently in the process of towing a blue sedan, license plate MH1969VN, is that correct?" The silence on the other end was profound. Williams, still standing in the parking lot, watching Jimmy hesitantly attach the tow hook while clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation, saw Paulson's face drain of color as he pressed his phone tighter to his ear. "Yes, ma'am, Governor, ma'am, but it's a fraudulent, handicapped—" "That vehicle belongs to Anthony Williams, recipient of the Medal of Honor for actions in Vietnam in 1969. Mr. Williams has lifetime parking privileges in this state, signed into law by Governor Thompson in 1985, expanded under Governor Edgar in 1998, and which I personally reaffirmed in 2023. Those privileges supersede all parking restrictions. He can park in front of your mall's main entrance if he wants to. He can park in your personal parking spot. Do you understand me?" Paulson's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Around him, a small crowd had gathered. Shoppers who'd stopped to watch the drama, mall employees on break, curious onlookers drawn by the presence of a tow truck, and a security guard writing citations with theatrical flair. They couldn't hear the governor's words, but they could see Paulson's face turning white, then red, then a sickly gray. But he walked fine. I watched him walk from the car without any— Martinez's voice could have frozen nitrogen. "Mr. Paulson, are you a doctor? Are you a VA medical examiner? Are you in any position to determine whether a 70-year-old combat veteran with 17 pieces of shrapnel still embedded in his leg from a grenade blast needs accessible parking?" Her voice rose, and Williams could actually hear it through the phone from 6 feet away. That man threw himself on an enemy position to save his platoon. He held that position with a shattered leg while his men evacuated. He's had 8 surgeries. He works every single day to walk fine, as you put it, because he refuses to let his wounds define him. And you, in your infinite wisdom, decided he was faking. The crowd was dead silent now. Jimmy, the tow driver, had stopped working entirely, the hook only partially attached, his hands frozen on the equipment. Paulson stammered, "I didn't— How was I supposed to know? He didn't tell me—" "He told you to read his license plate." "Do you know what MH stands for, Mr. Paulson?" "Medal of Honor. It's literally written on the plate. His car is registered in a state database specifically to prevent this kind of humiliation." Williams watched Paulson crumble in real time, the authoritative swagger evaporating as the enormity of his mistake crashed down. The phone call continued, but it was one-sided now, the governor explaining in precise, blistering detail what was about to happen. The tow would be cancelled immediately and at no cost. Mr. Williams would receive a formal written apology from the mall's corporate headquarters, from the security company, and from Mr. Paulson personally. The security company would be required to train all personnel on Medal of Honor license plates and veterans' privileges. And perhaps, most significantly, the governor herself would be personally calling Mr. Williams within the next 5 minutes to apologize on behalf of the state for allowing him to be treated this way. When Paulson finally lowered his phone, his hand was shaking. He looked at Williams, really looked at him for the first time, and saw past the grey hair and the modest clothes and the old sedan, saw the ramrod posture that 70 years and 17 pieces of shrapnel couldn't quite break, saw the quiet dignity of a man who'd endured not because he was loud about his service, but because his service spoke for itself to those who knew how to listen. "Sir, Paulson's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have checked. Williams held up a hand, silencing him gently. "Son, you were doing your job. People do abuse handicapped parking. Your heart was in the right place." His voice was kind, but firm. But this is what happens when you make assumptions. When you think you can tell someone's wounds by watching them walk. Some of the deepest wounds don't show. Jimmy unhooked the tow equipment quickly, apologizing the whole time, explaining he'd tried to warn Paulson. He'd seen the plate, he knew what it meant. Williams waved off the apologies, thanked him for his service. Turned out Jimmy's father had been in Nam too. Different unit, different war, but same mud, and watched the tow truck depart. The crowd still lingered, and Williams felt their eyes on him now with a different weight. Someone had overheard enough of Paulson's phone call to spread the word Medal of Honor recipient. Real hero. The whispers rippled through the gathered shoppers. Paulson stood rooted to the spot, his citation book hanging limply in his hand, looking like he wanted the pavement to open and swallow him. "Mr. Williams, is there anything I can do? Anything at all?" Williams considered for a moment, then said, "Yeah. Next time someone tells you they're a veteran, that they're legitimately disabled, that you might want to check something before you act. Listen to them. Not everyone who walks steady is healthy. Not everyone who looks fine is fine. And just because you can't see the wounds doesn't mean they're not there." He gestured to his leg. "I spent 2 years learning to walk without a limp because I didn't want to be pitied. But that doesn't mean my leg works right. Doesn't mean I'm not in pain most days. Doesn't mean I don't need that handicapped spot." He paused, letting it sink in. "You wanted to protect people who really need accessible parking. I appreciate that. But I am someone who really needs it. You just couldn't see it." His phone rang, a number with a Springfield area code but an extension he didn't recognize. He answered it, and a familiar voice came through, professional but warm. "Mr. Williams, this is Governor Martinez. First, please accept my sincere apologies for what you've experienced this morning. It's unacceptable, and I'm personally ensuring it doesn't happen again." Williams smiled faintly. "Governor, that's not necessary. These things happen. Mr. Williams, you earned this state's eternal gratitude on March 17, 1969. The absolute least we can do is let you park in peace. I'm mortified that our systems worked. The alert went out exactly as designed, but that you had to endure harassment before those systems kicked in." She paused. "I've read your file. 17 men came home because of you. Some of them have children now. Grandchildren. Lives that exist because you did what you did. This state honors that service. I honor that service." They spoke for another few minutes, the governor confirming that she'd personally follow up on the training requirements, that the mall's corporate office would be contacted at the highest level, that this incident would become a case study in how not to treat veterans. Williams thanked her graciously, assured her he was fine, and ended the call feeling something between vindicated and exhausted. Paulson approached one final time, and this time He wasn't swaggering. He moved hesitantly, like a man approaching something sacred he'd accidentally profaned. "Mr. Williams, I don't know what else to say except I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention. I let my assumptions override what you were trying to tell me." He swallowed hard. "My uncle really was in the Gulf War. He came back different, quieter. He doesn't talk about it much. But when he does, I should have remembered. Should have known that service doesn't come with a uniform you can see 50 years later." Williams extended his hand, and after a moment of surprise, Paulson took it. The grip was firm, humbling for the younger man. "Apology accepted, Derek. Use this. Learn from it. Teach other people. Maybe this embarrassment saves the next veteran from going through it." He nodded toward the mall entrance. "Now I'm going to go for my walk, doctor's orders, and then I'm going to get a coffee and maybe do a little shopping. That's all I came here for." As he walked away, with that careful, practiced gait that hid the pain and the metal fragments and the surgeries, the crowd parted naturally, and several people nodded to him with respect. One older man, wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap, approached and simply said, "Welcome home, brother." Williams nodded back, understanding passing between them without words. Inside the mall, Williams did his loop, 2 miles through the corridors, past the stores and the food court and the fountain where kids threw pennies. His leg ached by the end, the way it always did. But he'd done it, kept mobile, kept moving, refused to let the old wounds win more than they'd already won. When he returned to his car 90 minutes later, he found a handwritten note under the wiper, written in careful block letters on Springfield Mall security letterhead. "Mr. Williams, thank you for your service. Thank you for your patience with me. I will be better. I will remember. Derek Paulson." Next to it was a laminated card, freshly printed. "Reserved for Medal of Honor, recipient Anthony Williams, by order of mall management." Williams smiled, folded the note carefully, and pocketed it. The parking space designation would probably be removed by corporate eventually. Too specific, too preferential. But the gesture meant something. Young Derek had learned his lesson in the hardest possible way, but he'd learned it. That counted for something. As Williams drove out of the parking lot, his old sedan running smooth despite its years, he thought about the young men he'd served with. The ones who hadn't made it home, the ones whose names were on a black wall in Washington. Would they have thought this morning's drama was funny? Tragic? Both? He'd tell them about it someday, when his time came and he joined them wherever warriors go. For now, he had a coffee to finish, a leg to ice, and another week ahead of him in a world that had mostly forgotten the wars he'd fought, but occasionally, unexpectedly, remembered to say thank you. Subscribe to my channel if you believe that heroes don't stop being heroes just because they get older, just because their uniforms are packed away, just because they've learned to hide their wounds so well we forget they're wounded. Share this story if you think we need to look closer before we judge, listen harder before we act, and remember that the person you're dismissing might have saved lives you'll never know about in places you'll never see. The Medal of Honor isn't just a decoration. It's a reminder that ordinary-looking people sometimes carry extraordinary histories. Anthony Williams parked in a handicapped spot because he earned that right in ways most of us can't imagine. That's not special treatment. That's the smallest possible payment on a debt we can never fully repay. Type honor if you believe our heroes deserve respect, recognition, and yes, a parking spot close to the door.